Well, we have gotten this tonight, the only cop that I would ever let into the building. And with that, Mike Maat.
Thank you very much. If it makes you feel any better, and I'm sure that this won't probably make you feel any better, I am also the only cop I would allow into this building. Thank you very much. But I'm not letting you in without a mask, okay? Too soon? A little too soon?
The mask mandates are coming back.
They are coming back.
They were just at a protest.
I understand, and I'm sorry that I wasn't here early enough today to participate in that. I understand I would have had to have left like 4 days ago to make it in time, because the weather is really something. I'd like to, by the way, Regina, you're not dead to me, you're here. I'd like to give a shout out to a few people who are not here. Number one, the 2022 elected leadership of the state of Virginia Libertarian Party is not here, because they voted themselves out of existence, and then we voted them out of existence again to make sure that they wouldn't come back. So it's very exciting. Hip hip, hip hip, goodbye. It's very nice to see a group that actually gets along. But I do have to ask you, Rob, you said you had a nice meeting today. Is it really a Libertarian state convention if nobody punched each other in the face? Like, does that still count?
The night's still early.
Night's still early.
We haven't gotten drunk enough.
Bring it on. You know, I heard some talk about whether football and baseball were actually sports. I got to say, having grown up outside of Chicago, is it really football if it's not played in the field? I don't know about that.
Well,
The Steelers might make the playoffs now, right?
Yes.
But I understand that understanding whether or not the Steelers make it is slightly less complicated than I plan to end the Federal Reserve System. So we will see. Actually, I do want to give a shout out to a good friend of mine, TJ Cosen. You guys all know TJ, right?
Yeah.
TJ's not here because of two reasons. Number one, he's very sick. Number two, he knows that if he shows up, I'm going to punch him in the face. And that means that your meeting will be official. When TJ and I talked about coming up here, he said that I was going to do this. It was not formed in the phrase of a question. Okay, it was just, I was going to do this. How bad can it be? It's 4 hours. Knock yourself out. Bring Nancy. You guys are going to have a good time. We left today at 9:25 in the morning. Okay, and made it here about a half an hour ago. And as far as I know, Nancy has not yet called a divorce attorney, so we're doing pretty well. I don't know if you all have met my friend Nancy over here, who had the misfortune of marrying me a few years ago. For which I am eternally grateful. Shush up. If anyone says anything bad about TJ or Brittany or about Nancy, we're going to have to fight in the hallway. TJ is actually quite sick. I talked to him just about an hour ago on the phone when I said, Nancy says we're not doubling back to Breezewood, to that motel that we booked, because Breezewood is trashed with snow, right? He says, let me keep you married. And he booked a room at the local Holiday Inn. And I'm very grateful for that, enormously grateful. TJ says that he doesn't want to go to the hospital tonight, to the ER, even though Brittany, his nurse and wife, says that he needs to because of the mask mandate and because they're going to test him for COVID. I'm like, dude, I appreciate the cause, but at some point you got to do what you got to do. He's like, no, I'm not going. I wouldn't go unless, and this is where it gets pretty sticky, I wouldn't go unless I had a 4-month-old daughter and it was that important, in which case I hear in the background Brittany saying, I do have a 4-month-old on my hands and I can't get his ass to the hospital. So they will eventually work it out. I'm surprised to see so many of you here tonight. I think this is really exciting. I had planned to open up my talk with, why are we here? But now I see that there's no sarcasm necessary. Why the hell are we here? Why are you people here? I know it's not about me, and I know it's not about, merely a matter of supporting a party of principle. I know it's for the, 15 crock pots over here? By the way, if anyone is concerned that this talk is going to go terribly long, let me point out that you people are the last thing standing between me and my first meal of the day. Okay? That's right. We're going to be out of here in just moment, okay? Don't worry. I've already taken Q&A, we're done with that, so I'll just make a few remarks and we'll be done. I would like to remind you that the answer to the question about why we're here is not about you, and it sure as hell is not about me. The reason that we are here is not merely because we are a party of principle. We are here because there is a tremendous amount at stake. And what's at stake is not, let me remind you, as though you need any reminding, is not in this room. It is not about us. It is about people outside of this room, outside of this town, and in most cases outside of this state, as snowy as it may be. People whom we call brothers and sisters for no other damn good reason than the fact that they are fellow Americans. There are people out there who cannot spell libertarianism and don't really find the need to figure out how to spell libertarianism. They don't know that there's a Libertarian Party. And if you told them that there were one, they probably wouldn't care. And should they? Is it really up to them to go around discovering the fact that there's another political philosophy out there and that it is the path to victory in making their lives better? Or, as I would argue, is it up to us? We have a huge opportunity in 2024, but it's not merely an opportunity. If it were only about you, if it were only about me, it would be merely an opportunity, but it's not. This is an obligation. It's an obligation because we know, even if no one else does, we know that we are living in a nation that is being led off the rails by a federal government of the United States that is acceleratingly authoritarian. And not merely as a matter of philosophy and a matter of principle, because lives are at stake. People whom we need to stand up for, that we need to represent, people who are least able to stand up to the power of the government, people who are least able to survive the effects of inflation, of a Federal Reserve System that undermines their ability to make ends meet, people who are least able to stand up to the effects of taxation, people whose lives are most affected by the world's most oppressive criminal justice system. And on that point, I will stand absolutely no debate. People whose lives could be made better if we didn't have such a crappy public school system. People whose lives are undermined by a war on drugs, whose lives are undermined by bad local zoning policy, bad local housing policy, undermined because we do a crappy job of managing police officers and a crappy job of managing police agencies. We do so much wrong that sometimes we forget that intergenerational, persistent poverty is a political construct. It is not something that would be predicted in a world of completely free markets. It is our fault. And that is why it is our obligation to do something about it. If you're waiting for a Republican to change the direction of our government at the local level or at the federal level or any other godforsaken level, you're waiting for something that is not going to happen. If you're waiting for a Democrat to do the same, and bless your heart if you joined the Democratic Party years ago when there were probably reasons to do so, but you and your party have gone in two different directions. If you're waiting for a Democrat to stand up for the Bill of Rights, pick a number. You're waiting for something that is not going to happen. Let me talk just for a moment about something that is going to happen, and about which I have become increasingly concerned. And we don't do, we don't spend a lot of time talking about it, but at some point you got to start telling the truth. Well before the middle of this century, the federal government of the United States is going to lead into one of three catastrophes. Either, and I don't know which one is going to come first, but I do believe that when one of them happens, it will trip the other two. Either at some point, we're going to be led into what will eventually be called World War III, including its attendant risks for a nuclear exchange. And by a world war, I mean something that includes the United States and the United Kingdom on one side, either with Israel or Australia and Japan, or with NATO on our allied side. And on the other side, I mean at least 2 out of the 3 of Iran, Russia, and China. That's what I mean by a world war. I think that it's very likely that's going to happen in the next couple of decades. Not because there's anything happening today that I think is very likely to trip us into that situation, although it's completely possible. The reason I think that this is so likely is because we're playing a game of large numbers. We're playing a game in which we continuously take another bite of the apple, another shot at it. Will this be the military intervention that leads us into a war? We've dodged a couple of bullets lately. As long as you call killing 1 million Iraqis dodging a bullet, right? That's what we these days call a favorable outcome because it didn't wind up in a world war. That's what passes for good news these days. We take so many militaristic bites of the apple that I have to tell you, as a guy who has spent decades of my career immersed in data, I have to tell you that eventually we're not going to be able to work our way out of it. Eventually our number will come up. The second possible catastrophe that will eventually happen is that the federal government of the United States, if we don't correct course profoundly and soon, will eventually run into a financial collapse. This is not because I'm a financial savant, it's because I can add and subtract, right? We're quickly approaching a death spiral in terms of the amount of debt that we're accumulating. And what leads to the spiral and an inability to correct it or to control it is when enough debt is collected, that there's enough required annual service on that debt, that all of a sudden, someone like S&P takes a look at the federal government and doesn't downgrade us to double A plus, but downgrades us eventually to like single A minus. Trust me, in Nerdville, this matters. And all of a sudden, it doesn't cost us 3% to borrow money, and it doesn't cost us 4%. It costs us 5%, then 6%, then 7%. And all of a sudden, instead of your debt service on an annual basis increasing by 5% or 10%, it doubles, and you can't service it. And it happens fast. It happens much faster than a legislature would be able to react to it. Now, do we really care if the federal government of the United States is a financial collapse? To be honest, no. One of my greatest fears is that when it happens, we won't care. What I do care about is the likelihood that it brings down with it the US dollar. Do I care if the US dollar comes down? Not in a world of competitive currencies. Do we have a world of competitive currencies? No. The fall of the federal government of the United States, the collapse of the US dollar, would necessarily lead to a depression of epic proportion, which would be very difficult to climb out without a stable reserve currency somewhere in the world. The third catastrophe that I see coming, and I don't know which one is most likely, but increasing authoritarianism. Anyone watched the Joe Biden speech the other day? By the other day, I mean yesterday, it feels like a week ago. He's now calling out, pardon me, Donald Trump by name, right? People have asked me, do you think that Donald Trump presents a threat to democracy? And I always, I say no, because, he's kind of a dimple-brained and, I've had a long history of not liking Donald Trump. I was in New York in the 80s, if you dislike a guy for 40 years, at some point you kind of discount the extent to which he can present a real threat to the United States. But I have to admit that watching Joe Biden has changed my mind on this. It's not that Donald Trump himself represents a threat to democracy. It's that he represents half of a duopolistic system that absolutely is not going to, but is presently threatening an end to our democracy. Authoritarianism grows in democracy when the political powers give up on their political agenda and adopt as their only real priority keeping the other schmuck out of power. That's where we are today. And Joe Biden finally said the quiet part out loud yesterday. His entire campaign is going to be based on keeping the other guy out.
This is almost textbook definitionally growing authoritarianism. This is how democracies fall. They fall when the politicians no longer even pretend to serve. At least the last 40 years since I've been growing up, they pretended, they had the good decency to lie to me. Now, they don't even kiss me while they're doing bad things to me. It's just a matter of, we're here to stay in power. And what I fear is the growing sense of authoritarianism, whether it's manifested in, new mask mandates, or whether it's manifested in new regulations because of staying green, or if it's manifested in any of a number of other ways, right? It almost does. Use your imagination. At some point, enough will have been enough. And at that point, what I fear is not a smooth process of taking down the government, but a chaotic revolt that leads to violence, that leads to martial law, and an acceleration of authoritarianism that eventually brings down not the government per se, but the Constitution. And I believe that
Any one of these three catastrophes would likely trip the other two. And I do not believe that we have until the middle of the century to stop this. And the reason that I wanted to bring this to your attention is not because I grew depressed in the 9-hour drive today, which I didn't because Nancy was with me. But they say, by the way, they say that the first person to live to be 150 years old is already alive. With Nancy's bad luck, it'll probably be me. But having said that, the reason I bring it to your attention is because it is incumbent upon us to realize that it is no longer enough for us to be the party of principle. We have to be the party of action. We have to be the party that realizes that yes, the principles matter. Philosophically speaking, we as libertarians are the descendants of the people that founded this country. We must realize that no one else is going to lead the charge back anywhere near the direction of the Constitution. Never mind us having an argument about anarchism versus minarchism. It is absolutely up to us. It is up to every one of us to pick up a shovel. And not the kind of shovel that you would use to dig your own grave, but the kind that you can wield as a weapon. We have a lot to get done. We have to behave in ways that we have not behaved in the past. We have to run a campaign that is very different than the campaigns that we have run in the past. I know that for my part, if I can, look, it's been 9 hours, I'm going to give you my 90-second plug, right? Our campaign has a couple of important announcements coming up. We are launching an AI bot. You can read about it at libertarianintelligence.org. Don't go to libertarianintelligence.com. I don't actually know what's there, but I'm told it's weird.
Is it not porn? Is it porn?
It's not porn. Sorry to disappoint. Our AI bot is designed to spread libertarianism beyond the Libertarian Party. Having said that, it's in a beta test phase. I would appreciate it if you all would go and test it. Find some of the, see if you can trick it into saying something stupid and drop me an email.
Yeah, I'll fix it.
So that maybe, what's that? So that maybe we can fix it, right, and make it better. Because together, we can. An AI bot is a very difficult thing to train, especially if it's as smart as a libertarian. We have a book coming out about our Gold New Deal, about new relationship between us and the government that we will tolerate. That is the platform on which our presidential campaign is based, because we believe that we need a fundamentally different relationship between us and the federal government. We need to change things fundamentally and profoundly. We are campaigning on some of the most transformational ideas in libertarian thought. And this is not merely because we believe it is the right thing to do to brand the party for the benefit of down ballot candidates, which we do.
we believe that it's absolutely critical to do that. And by the way, anyone run for local office here in the room? Yes, yes. Elected, thank you. That's a big deal. Those of you with your hands not yet raised, you will in the future. That's not a threat, that's just, a wake-up call. It's coming, right? You will eventually. Those of us who have run for local office know that the value of the Libertarian Party brand is approximately zero. Just might as well put it out there. A big piece of that problem is because we have not run the correct, in my view, types of presidential campaigns in the past. And I don't mean that to sound quite as disparaging as it may have come out. Chalk it up to trial and error. But based on what we've learned in the past, we know today that we have to run a completely differentiated message in order to get more attention and to correctly brand the party. That's the basis of the campaign that we're putting together today. So go check out what we call LISA, the Libertarian Intelligence System application at libertarianintelligence.org, and let us know what you think of it. Connect over to the campaign website, check it out, find all the stupid things that I say there, and let me know how you feel about it. My real phone number is there, so you can actually text me, or call me, or drop me an email, and I would look forward to staying in touch. I'm glad you all are here. Thanks for your time.